Sonoma County.
Resource recovery.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's kind of a tongue twister.
This is our Colonial Manor, some of our owners, tenants. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
I'll leave it to you. We're gonna film it here. So.
Great, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Maybe I'll move these
We
out of the way.
have questions from some of the people that aren't here.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'll just kind of just briefly go over the company and how we came to be servicing Sebastopol. You may or may not know, Sonoma County Resource Recovery was awarded the garbage contract for the city of Sebastopol. So we will be the service provider within the city starting July 1st. So Recology will no longer be servicing Sebastopol. They still will be servicing the county and the other cities where they have contracts. Contracts typically go up for bid every 10 to 15 years, depending on how well negotiations go or how happy the city is with the service. Recology did enter negotiation with the city of Sebastopol, and they negotiated for quite some time, and they just weren't able to agree on the terms of the new contract, so that contract was placed out for bid. There were two bidders, Recology and Sonoma County Resource Recovery, and for a number of reasons, they rate you on sustainability, customer service, references, there's all sorts of categories that they rate the proposal on, and Sonoma County Resource Recovery beat Recology by just a few points. So that is why I am here today. So we are essentially the same company as Recology. We're a garbage hauler, so we haul garbage. Everywhere in how California does it is cities go into agreements with specific companies for a number of reasons. This prevents, not having 16 different garbage companies driving down your city streets, which would be complete chaos. It also allows the city to keep track of compliance regulations related to waste management. So there's a lot of regulations based on how much material needs to be diverted out of the landfill, how organics is handled, how recycling is handled, how construction and demolition waste is handled. So we work really closely with the city to help them meet all of the requirements that the state places on the city. That's just a brief little run of garbage contract work. It's very confusing. I'm still learning. But so what I do for Sonoma County Resource Recovery is I'm outreach and education. So I essentially do meetings like this, or go to the schools or go to businesses and encourage them to divert as much waste out of landfill as possible, and then also remind them of regulations that they need to adhere to. We don't actually fine people for not being in compliance, but I do report to Zero Waste Sonoma, which is the county-wide waste management agency, who then will go in and handle any customers that are not complying with regulations. For instance, SB 1383 is a big regulation that requires that all organic waste is composted. That was enacted in 2022. So that is really what the state is focused on right now. When organic waste is sent to the landfill, it's buried, just like everything else in the landfill. And so it's buried and it's compacted without oxygen, which then that organic waste breaks down and creates methane. So there's a real big push to get as much organic waste as we can out of the landfill to address the climate change and try to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases we're emitting into the atmosphere. So that is one of the reasons why we've had these compost pails out. So if you're not already composting your food scraps at home, you actually are required to, but it's really hard to enforce that. So nobody's really gonna come into your kitchen and make sure you're composting. But we also really try to encourage people by providing the tools to get that food waste into the green bin. So these can live under your sink or on your counter, and all of your food waste, all of your food soiled paper, and all of your yard waste can go into your green organics container.
Paper?
And paper, yeah, so paper towels, paper bags, paper plates, and food soiled. So we don't necessarily want clean paper in the compost.
I just thought it had to be organic.
Yeah, well, paper is organic, it comes from a tree. So anything that came from the earth can go back into the organics cart and be turned into compost and go back into the earth. So that includes meat, dairy, bones, anything that you can eat or anything that is natural and came from the earth. Yeah.
For instance, in Portland, egg cartons cannot go in recycle, they have to go in compost.
Oh, yeah.
What about here?
Yeah, we do recycle egg cartons here.
But
Yeah.
recycle or compost?
So I always say if it's clean paper, recycle should be your first choice.
Okay, great.
If it's soiled, then compost.
Right.
Fiber doesn't really add nutrients to compost, so, compost facilities don't really want a ton of paper if they don't have to have it, but if it's better than sending it to the landfill.
Yes.
So recycle, compost, landfill would be your last.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
On
you.
a paper plate that's got a design on it, are
Yeah.
those allowed to go in the green bin?
So that's where it gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
So, when we say soiled paper, we mean 100% paper. And the way to tell if something, there's a lot of paper that is coated with plastic. Everything has plastic in it nowadays. And, one of those things are, food containers. So a container like this, the reason that it can hold hot soup or a liquid of any sort of soda is because it's coated in plastic. If it were to be 100% paper, it would dissolve as you were leaving the restaurant.
Does
I
it
mean,
have the little recycle thing on the bottom?
this one does not, but
Okay.
some of them do. The
Oh.
labeling is very confusing, and I usually, sometimes it is accurate, but it's not always. A lot of times these manufacturers that are producing these materials will find one facility in the state that will recycle it, so then it's recyclable. When really recycling is very local, so it's really based off where you live and what facility your material's going to, and not every facility accepts every material. So, it's really good to keep up with what your specific recycler takes, and you could do that by contacting us, cause we would know. But so for this type of material, I always tell people, if you think it's paper, it looks like paper, and you're not 100% sure, you're like, oh, it's food soil, it could be composted. There's a couple ways to tell if it's coated. One is if it's meant to hold liquid, it's probably coated. Another is if it's really shiny and has a glaze, it's probably coated. But you can always do the tear test, which you just try to rip it. If it resists, if it's a little stretchy, it's coated in plastic. If it's paper, it'll rip really easily, so, yeah.
So does that get composted? No.
No.
It doesn't get recycled, it only goes in
the
landfill.
garbage, yeah.
You also said that organic food can only be placed in compost, is that right?
Just organic material. So there is a difference
Organic
between
materials.
organic food and organic matter. So organic food is like a certification, just meaning the food wasn't, sprayed with pesticides, it's not, modified.
So regular food cannot go in the compost?
It can, yeah. So
So
organic,
now I'm confused.
yeah, this is confusing. So there's a general term for what is accepted in your green organics cart. So California is leaning towards calling everything that can be composted organic material because it is organic matter. So food is organic, fiber is organic, but it's not, there's a difference between organic material and being certified organic produce.
So it doesn't have to be organically
It
grown.
doesn't, yeah, no,
It's
you
just
can,
something that isn't produced in a can or something, it's fresh food.
it just means that it's food.
It's food.
Yeah, so any food can go in
Any
there.
food and any paper
Yeah.
that contains food.
Yes, yeah.
Plastic.
Yeah, I know the organics can kind of throw people off. You can put anything in your green organics cart that is food, paper, yard waste. It doesn't need to be certified organic. Certified organic, just like I said, is the way that materials, that food was grown.
What about the little green bags that are compostable?
Yeah, so we are advising that you don't use any compostable plastic in your organics cart, and that is pretty universal throughout California. Most compost producers do not want any compostable plastics. The green compostable bags, if you work in a large food waste generating business like a restaurant or a grocery store, that is accepted. It's fine if that's the way that the means that you can get that organic waste into the cart. That's totally fine. It will get sorted out at the organic facility, at the compost facility. But we'd rather you not, if you don't need to use them, we'd rather you not use them. So like if you have this on your kitchen counter, some people like to line it. Don't do that. Yeah, yeah. It's those bags are actually kind of expensive, and they really, the people that work at these facilities actually have to hand pick them out. So it's best to just throw your food waste in here, dump it in the cart, or rinse it out, use it again. You can line it with paper if you want to use a paper bag or paper towels. That's a better option than the green bags. But if you own a restaurant or a business where you're producing a lot of food waste, it's totally fine to use those.
What do we do? I've managed to, in spite of the fact that I hate them, I've managed to collect several of those green bags.
Yeah.
Where do they go?
Landfill.
Landfill.
Yeah. So all compostable plastics go to the land, need to be sent to the landfill.
Now, I collect it in the plastic bag and then dump it.
Yeah, that's
So,
fine.
and then the bag was
Yeah, and that's a great way to keep your, to transport it and
From
keep your,
getting dirty.
yeah, so if you have extra plastic bags lying around and you wanna use that to collect it, that's totally fine. Yeah,
What about bones and,
bones are compostable, so you can put those in your organics, yeah. Yeah, so, any meat bones, dairy, fish, cheese can go in there, anything you can eat. And you don't wanna eat a bone, but you could. Yeah.
What about fat, like bacon fat, if you swab out?
Yeah.
Thing with a paper towel, does that go in compost?
It can, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't pour the liquid in there, but if you let it cooled and you wanna wipe it with a paper towel and throw it in there, or just spatula it on top of other waste, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
or freeze it, that's what I do.
Or freeze it, yeah. Yeah.
I've noticed that many people are putting their dog waste in the compost, which
Yeah.
I think is not cool.
No, yeah, so, they do not, composting facilities do not want any pet waste. There's pathogens and bacteria, and, they would rather avoid that type of waste, so pet waste
Goes in
needs to go in the
garbage.
landfill. It does get a little confusing, cause a lot of those pet waste bags are green, and so people associate the green bag with the green container. It's just, people just need reminders, and it's very confusing, but yeah, pet waste does not go in organics. Good question.
In
Yeah.
this particular cup that you have,
Uh-huh.
would that end up in the blue?
The garbage.
The garbage,
Yeah,
okay.
so, blue for paper products that can be recycled, pretty much any paper bag, newspaper, mailer, a magazine,
Now magazines have shiny pages, but that's okay.
yeah, because typically that's just glossy ink.
I see.
So that's why often I'll tell people to try to do the tear test, because if you have a lot of that packaging, like paper board, looks really shiny, and it looks like it may be coated in plastic. If you try to tear it and it tears really easily, then that's just glossy ink, and that is recyclable.
Okay.
They don't want plastic coated paper and cardboard. It's really hard to separate that material. So recycling works really well with single materials, not with packaging that's made out of multi-layered materials, because it's so hard to separate. So that is why something like this wouldn't really be recyclable, because they would have to have a system to shred this and get the thin plastic and the paper separated, which is probably not financially feasible. It might be possible, but
What about
Yeah.
milk cartons?
milk cartons are recyclable. And that's where, so, yeah, that's where it gets a little tricky. So because These are so cartons like this are recyclable. There's such a high quantity of these, and they're made out of really good quality, really high quality paper. They do recycle these. For something like this, there's so many different shapes and sizes and uses, and a lot of times they're food soil, that it's just really hard to sort and bale all of this thin plastic covered paper out and recycle it. Whereas a carton like this, it's very identifiable, and recyclers can collect all of these cartons and bale them and send them off to be recycled. I know it gets a little
But
tricky.
not the lid, right?
You can leave the lid on.
Oh.
So this will get separated in the recycling process. We advise that you leave lids on everything. It just keeps it keeps, if like you didn't empty this all the way and there was a little liquid left in it, it keeps it potentially this from contaminating other recyclables. So if this had, you know, half a cup of milk in it and you threw it in your recycling, it leaked all over the paper products in there. Now potentially that paper is not recyclable. So lids on everything. It's just kind of general rule of thumb.
Okay, plastic jars or bottles, some of them have a recyclable little
Yeah.
insignia, but some do not. The ones that do not, are they recyclable or no?
Yeah.
Or like pill bottles or something?
Yeah, pill bottles, if they're the larger pill bottles, they are.
Or like supplement, you know, vitamins.
Yeah, those are recyclable. Labeling is not necessarily accurate. I always just go off of if it's a plastic that holds its form, so not a soft, stretchy plastic like a bag like this. This is a soft, stretchy plastic. It doesn't hold its form. This is kind of, and the category is all plastic bags go in this garbage category. Saran wrap, Ziploc bags.
But bottles and jars
But
are.
yeah, any rigid plastic that holds its form that's clean is most likely recyclable, unless it's a very obscure object. Like if you were to have like a child's toy, or like a makeup container that the recycling facilities don't see a lot of, and maybe it's made out of a lot of different materials, that would not be recyclable. But your standard bottles, jugs, tubs, things that you're discarding a lot, you're buying from the grocery store often, that hold its form, that aren't soft and stretchy, you know, like a water bottle holds its shape, is recyclable.
How about glass bottles?
Glass is recyclable.
How about the tops on the glass?
Yeah, you can leave the lids on.
Leave the lids on the glass?
Yeah,
So then that leads me to how about metals then, because a lot of them.
yeah.
All metals are recyclable?
For the most part, yeah. So you can
I mean, not batteries or anything like that,
Yeah,
but
no-
I'm just
no
saying like
batteries.
screws or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's really small really small materials in general, you don't really wanna throw in your recycling. Like if I were to take this lid off of this bottle, this is not gonna go in the recycling anymore. Now since this is separated, it should go in the landfill. There's a number of reasons for that. One of them is just, this would have a really hard time making it to a bale and then sent off somewhere to be recycled. You know, this goes into your container at home, and then your container here, and then is dumped in a truck, and then is put in another truck, and then sent to a facility, and then on a sorting line. And anything really small won't make it through that process. So I always tell people, anything that you put in your recycling should be at least the size of the palm of your hand or larger. So if it's like a teeny little screw, a little lid, a teeny little piece of plastic, anything like that should be landfilled. But metal cans, metal cans, I guess they're all aluminum cans and metal cans, aluminum foil, aluminum containers, like for instance, like a pie, a dish that a pie is served in, those are all recyclable.
What about foil?
Foil is recyclable, and it follows the same rule as you want it to be a little bit larger than the palm of your hand. If you have like a teeny little shred of foil, that is not recyclable, but you can some people will save up their foils. So for instance, I know people that have like the little yogurt tops and they'll save like 10 of those and then ball them together and then recycle it.
Oh, you can do that.
Yes, yeah.
And what about the cleanliness of the foil? Does it need to be rinsed?
Everything should be
soiled?
fairly clean that's going in the recycling. It doesn't need to be scrubbed with a soap and sponge, but a quick wipe, a quick shake with water.
Peanut butter jars are hard.
Yeah,
So what's your suggestion on peanut butter jars, whether they're glass or plastic?
yeah. Do you have a dog?
Not anymore.
Yeah. I usually
So
when I,
clean those out as best as possible.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Do you know what I do? I mean, this isn't like official advice, but I just like put yogurt in it and eat like
Oh, there you go.
eat the rest of the peanut, like scrape it as much as I can, and then when I'm doing dishes, I'll just have it in my sink and let it kind of just collect
Right.
extra water until
Until it's
and
done.
shake it.
Okay, that's great.
It's, I mean, if you don't want to go through all that work, then just put it in your landfill. But if you really do want to recycle and want to,
Oh, yeah.
do the right
I
thing, then,
oftentimes will just put it through the dishwasher
yeah, that's great.
and then pop it in the recycle.
Yeah, if you have a dishwasher and it's something that can go through the dishwasher, that's a great way to do it.
I have a couple items that I brought that I have questions about.
Yeah,
Can
sure.
we just show them?
Yeah.
Show everyone? Maybe someone else will have the same question. You did answer the question about these containers.
Yeah,
So
recyclable.
those are
Mhm.
recyclable.
With like,
With, with the lid screwed on.
Yeah.
And then these of course go in the trash.
Yes.
What about like, there's a little piece of plastic on this,
That's
does this
fine,
need to come off? Or
No,
can it go
so-
right in the,
It can go right in there. So
and
we,
this tears, so there's no
yeah, so you're
plastic
good.
on it?
And you'll notice that's one that could be a little tricky because it looks a little shiny, but it's just glossy ink.
Right, okay.
Yeah. As long as it's mostly one material, so we always say if it's about 90% of a single material, it's recyclable. Like for instance, a mailer that has that little plastic window, that can be recycled. I always take the plastic out, but if you leave the plastic on, that's fine. A box with a little tape, some paper with staples, that's fine.
And prescription bottles,
That is recyclable.
yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is part cardboard, hard
Yeah.
cardboard, but metal.
Yeah, I would.
Would I part it out
You could.
necessarily?
Yeah, if you wanted to take it apart, it would be recyclable. That would be one where I would take the lid off and recycle the lid.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then-
okay, recycle
yeah,
the lid.
because the lid is metal.
Yeah, this part.
Yeah.
Okay. And then of course, this is kind of the same thing, but this has a plastic top.
Yeah, if you could rip that plastic off.
Okay,
If you wanted to separate it, that would have to be separated.
okay.
Yeah.
And then like a Kleenex box, there's plastic on top.
Yeah.
Would I just take the plastic out and put that in the trash and then recycle this?
Yes,
Okay.
you could recycle it with it. That's a very minimal amount of plastic, so you could still recycle it with the plastic on it.
And should
I
it be
take
flattened?
it off. You should flatten all
You
your
should flatten
cardboard,
everything.
especially because you are paying for the space in your recycling bins.
Okay.
So if you don't, if you're putting boxes in there of any size and shape that are not broken down, you're paying for air.
Okay. And then this has a little recycling triangle on it.
Yeah, that's recyclable, yeah,
Okay.
so that's a more rigid plastic, it's pretty common.
And the fish containers, chicken containers,
Yeah.
they're all recycled.
Yeah, garbage.
Garbage.
Soft, stretchy.
But this is
Paper.
paper, so this can go in the
Recycling.
recycling. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's my show and tell.
you
today.
Thank you for
you
your show and tell.
recycle things by the number on the bottom in the little triangle.
Yeah.
Is that still accurate or pretty much anything goes now?
Yeah, I don't really like to push for the numbers. I think it kind of gets confusing and like I said, the labeling isn't accurate. I always tell people for plastics, if it's a common item that you're buying a lot, you're discarding a lot, you get at the grocery store often, if it holds its shape, it's a rigid bottle, jug, tub, container, then it's most likely recyclable. The numbers that are not recyclable are pretty obvious. They're plastic bags, they're styrofoam, they're like, more, not as, used common plastics, like PVC. So, if it's not recyclable, it's, and you're kind of aware of what's not recyclable, you don't really need to know the numbers, but
Are there any common numbers on those that are
7 is a no-go. So we recycle 1, 2, 3, and 5.
1, 2, 3, 5.
Let me make sure. Actually,
I was thinking, we as consumers,
yeah,
if there's a product that we like, but it's in packaging that we don't like, we can try to influence the manufacturer,
yeah.
company. But it's hard to, that's why we need to know, like cottage cheese, it comes in number 5, I didn't know.
Yeah, and that is recyclable, so,
That's good to know.
and, yeah, and number 5 is like, the reason why I don't necessarily lean to the numbers is number 5 is like a tub, a plastic cup, plastic cups are recyclable.
Okay.
Number 1 is our plastic cups, that you like would get at a food vendor. The numbers are, but then again, some materials are mixed materials, so they might say, have a recycling sign on it, but it might be predominantly one plastic mixed with another, which makes it not recyclable, so the numbers are a little, can get a little confusing.
I have 2 questions
Yeah.
on the plastic lettuce containers. Those
Yeah.
are normally recyclable.
Mhm.
And then the old plastic cutting boards.
No.
Yeah, those are trash.
Yeah, so so you're not throwing away a plastic cutting board, weekly. So that's
Yeah.
something to remember, you're not buying it at the grocery store, you're not throwing it away often. Recycling works on volume and, quantity, so they would have to receive a ton of those plastic cutting boards a day and sort them all out and bale them. So all recyclables are separated, by the material and then, baled and sold together. So they need a whole lot of one material to bale it and to sell it. So something like a cutting board, they're not gonna see a lot of, I mentioned earlier, we see a lot of like plastic children's toys, cause they're plastic, but there's a lot of different shapes and sizes and, yeah.
What about, you go to the nursery and you get these plastic,
Yeah.
and there are hundreds of them throughout Sonoma County. And when I see them in the recycle bin, I generally take them out.
Yeah.
But, are they recyclable?
You're talking about just the planters, like
Yeah.
they are recyclable.
The pots?
Yeah.
The pots
Yeah.
or the little 6-packs?
Either one.
Either of.
Yeah.
Is it because they hold their shape?
Yeah, they're a little harder plastic, they
Okay.
hold their shape. One thing I'll kind of leave you with a resource, all of our recycling that we collect goes to Napa Recycling in Napa. They have a really great, facility, they actually accept a lot of material. If you're ever, you can always reach out to me, but if you're ever really, not sure, their website has a pretty thorough list and pictures of everything they take. And I would have printed it out, but it is a really long list, and it's probably easier to just look on the website
And the website is?
if you just Google Napa Recycling,
Napa Recycling.
it'll come right up.
Great.
They accept a lot of materials, and like I said, they have pictures and descriptions of everything they accept. So that's super helpful. Yeah.
I have a plastic lid and it says made from plants, not petroleum.
Mm-hmm.
Then it said, turns into soil when commercially composted. So
Yeah.
Is this just garbage? Or-
It is,
Okay.
yeah, so, all compostable plastics need to be discarded into your gray landfill cart. Like I said earlier, that's pretty universal throughout California, there's a few facilities that are accepting compostable plastics, and that is only because those facilities are producing conventional, non-organic compost. So, in order to produce certified organic compost, you cannot accept compostable plastics. So that is where it's a little frustrating and people are, the packaging industry is a little ahead of the composting facilities. The composting facilities, most of them are producing certified organic because, it sells for a lot higher price than conventional compost. And so but in order to be certified organic, they can only accept certain materials. And one of those materials they cannot accept is compostable plastics. They're still considered synthetic, although they are made out of plants. They're not considered an organic input. So, I know it's a little confusing, but that is why there's a little bit of an issue right now with, we're getting this really big push for compostable plastic packaging instead of plastic, but the facilities cannot accept it, so it needs to go in your landfill.
Also, regarding prescription pill bottles, now I know Shelley had one, a fair size one. What about smaller ones?
So if it's smaller than the palm of your hand,
Smaller than the
yeah,
palm of your hand. Oh, okay.
yeah, and I know they do make some smaller ones,
Right.
so that should go in your garbage, your landfill.
You're talking about little pill boxes?
Teeny, yeah, anything smaller than the palm.
Really, because they're hard.
Yeah, but like I said, anything smaller than the palm of your hand really can't make it through the process that,
The baling process.
yeah, and the baling process, so,
All right.
so all,
So all the pill bottles except for the really
the
big
bigger
ones.
ones, yeah. Yeah, so, about the palm of your hand or larger, all of that material is sorted and then just compacted together and baled, and those little teeny materials just can't be baled.
I have a question that
Yeah.
is not related to the three different types of composting or garbage. Do you pick up things like twice a year?
We do, yeah.
So, and what time of the year do you pick up?
That's up to you guys, so you guys will have to decide when you want to arrange for your community pickups. A lot of people will do spring and fall, you know, or maybe after the holidays is a great time to do it. It's up to, it's up to your,
So you have to do it as a group?
as a group, yeah,
Rather
so.
than individually, because I know some places let you, if you let them know, you can put it on
Yeah.
a couch, or you can, they'll come and pick it up.
Yeah, so we, for multifamily properties, we do, twice a year, and it's all, you get 4 cubic yards per unit, so, if you were, and we'll bring big debris boxes, so, if there were 5 units, we'd bring you a 20-yard debris box, and you'd have that over the weekend to discard whatever you need to. We'll separate, we'll have different, areas for electronics, metal, certain appliances.
Do they take chemicals through that process?
No, so any hazardous waste needs to be either taken to the hazardous waste facility at Meacham Road landfill, or, you can schedule an appointment with Zero Waste Sonoma when they do have a hazardous waste event in Sebastopol, which they rotate through every city in the county. And there's usually something on the calendar, so if you have something, look that up and sign up. And you don't, it's free, it's just they don't want everybody coming all at once, so that's why they have little time slots, but, you just drive through and drop it off.
Was it last called Zero Waste?
Zero Waste Sonoma, so they are the governmental agency, they're a JPA, so they represent a joint power authority, so they represent every city in, the county, in regards to waste management, so they oversee landfill diversion and all of the larger programs and local ordinances, and they also hold a lot of events, electronic waste events, household hazardous waste events, mattress recycling. So if you, and they also have a really, great website if you ever have something that you're not sure, a hard to recycle or hard to dispose of item, their website has a really good search bar that you can type that in, and they'll give you a lot of options locally.
Can we talk batteries?
Yeah.
So with Recology, we could put them in a plastic bag and put them on top of our
Mhm.
garbage for them to take away.
Yeah.
How will your company handle batteries?
So we don't collect batteries from multifamily properties. We do offer that service if you have residential recycling carts. We don't for dumpsters. I believe there is a battery recycling in City Hall. Is anyone familiar with that?
Yes.
It's Sebastopol hardware.
And the
like-
Sebastopol
Yeah, yeah.
It's Sebastopol hardware, big batteries.
Okay, yeah, so you would have to, maybe you can get a little community collection going and Yeah, sorry, we only do it for, there are just some things that don't apply to multifamily that do apply to residential, and that's one of them.
Since you're doing it for multifamily, I've also heard that you're charging us a lot more, which means that each one of us is gonna have to pay more.
No, Barbara, it's all good. The
Yeah.
last board meeting we talked about it.
No, I'm asking her why, no, sure, it's all good, no.
Yeah, so we actually,
I've been told this by my friend who in Sonoma, who's on the city council, that's
Oh,
what-
yeah.
So not from the board.
so there are different price structures, there's residential and then there's multifamily and commercial. Multifamily and commercial, for the most part, fall in the same price structure, and that's universal for almost all garbage companies everywhere. And I know there's a good argument to be made that you guys are not a commercial, property, you're not making money off living here, you're not selling a product. But there is a reason they are kind of bundled in the same category. For one, a lot of commercial properties are larger apartment complexes owned by a corporation that maybe are making money, but also there's a lot of more contamination and issues regarding multifamily disposal and waste sorting. That being said, we are making exceptions for smaller properties that are primarily individually owned. So we are charging residential rates here
Oh,
too.
good. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for explaining it to me. She was just telling me, just make sure you have the person explain and go through your property and see
Yeah.
what kind of a deal you can get.
Yeah,
And
so
they've
we've
already
done that for a few places in Sebastopol.
Okay.
If they are mostly individually owned and, the owners reside there, it's a little, there's a few nuances, but pretty much, if you wanted to all have your own carts, you technically could, right?
Right,
So,
no.
so, I mean, you wouldn't want that, and we wouldn't necessarily wouldn't want that either. So we're just compromising and saying, you know, you could technically just all have your own accounts and have your own garbage carts and save some money, and then we'd have to service, 80 carts here. So it's easier for everybody to just, provide you the bin and then charge you based off the, gallons, but apply the residential rate, so that's what happened.
Thank you for
But it does
explaining
mean
that.
that we all need to be very careful and
Yeah.
conscientious about sorting, otherwise, you wouldn't guarantee that.
This is a great turn.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that we applied those rates is because, there is a lot more,
Contamination.
yeah, well, there's less contamination here than there are in other places where there isn't as much, individual responsibility over the garbage sorting. You guys are obviously a little bit more involved and inclined to, sort properly. So in other properties, there's a lot of usage and there's not a lot of accountability and there's a lot of contamination. So often multifamily properties, we have to actually discard the recycling and their organics into the landfill because it's so heavily contaminated. And that costs a lot more than recycling that material. So, so that's, yeah.
So, we have had an ongoing problem with people coming in
Yes.
and
Something.
filling both,
Wow.
all of our
Yeah.
stuff up, and that kind of goes hand in hand with this cross-contamination, because we don't really
Yeah.
know what's going on. Can we lock our bin, and
Yeah.
like with a combo lock or something? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. So,
cause I just went out there today and the thing's like heaping.
yeah. So I would heavily recommend that you do lock your bin because if they're, if somebody's coming in here and contaminating your recycling, there's potential for a fee to be applied. We, prefer to try to reach out to whoever's responsible and provide education, but if it's ongoing issue, there can be fees applied. We recommend that almost, unless your enclosure has a lock on the outside, or it's, you know, there's really no access, public access to it, if either of those things are not true, then you should be locking them.
Like the one back there, there's no real access, they have to drive all the way
Yeah, so
around.
you don't
The
you
one
worry
back
about that.
there, they're
This
just
for
pulling
one and this
in
one.
and doing a quick dump and.
Yeah, so you might wanna get a lock, so there are a couple options, either we provide you with a lock and the key, and you can make as many copies as you want. Or the only lock we provide is a key lock. If you prefer a combo lock, you just need to go purchase your own combo lock, create a combo and then share it with us, so our drivers have that combo. I would recommend that though, especially if you're already noticing that there is illegal dumping, because there's contamination fees, there's also overage fees. So, the lid of your bin should close. If it does not close, you know, if it's a little bit, we're not gonna charge you, but if it's heaping, there are charges for that, so.
Now, on that corner,
Yeah,
there, I think it's still there, we still have what was a gate.
yeah,
So can we just lock the gate
Yeah.
rather than locks on all the
Yeah.
doors? Okay, and that would be
Yeah.
a little easier.
It's such a low fence there, people.
people just toss it over.
Just toss, yeah.
They could toss it over.
I've seen people come from the other side and just jump over, lift the lid and dump stuff in.
Yeah, do they,
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be nice to even just put up, some people put up the signs that say we have security cameras, even if you don't. Sometimes
be
that is-
prosecuted?
Or
put a
yeah,
camera up.
locking the physical bins is probably your best bet.
Is there an additional charge for locking bins, because it's gonna take the driver more time?
We charge $8.69 a month, so there are a couple options. If you come and unlock the bin the day of, and then put the lock back on, we won't charge you for the lock. So, you're serviced all on Wednesday, I believe?
I thought it was Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tuesday they cancel.
Okay, sorry,
our
garbage
Wednesday.
is Wednesday, recycle is Tuesdays. If somebody wanted to be responsible for taking that lock off and putting it back on, there'd be no charge. If our driver does have to unlock a lock, it's $8.69, which, a month,
A month.
yeah,
Per lock.
per lock.
So if we have
So
one
there'd
on
be-
individual bins.
Yeah, so it sounds like you would maybe need two
It would be $17 a month.
a month, yeah.
But if someone forgot to unlock it, then we wouldn't get a pickup at all.
Yeah, I mean, if we had your combination, our driver would probably just unlock it.
The other problem that I'm worried about, I was wondering which bin was overflowing,
The
This one,
garbage.
here,
the garbage.
the garbage, yeah.
Okay, our neighbor that
This one.
runs the
Mhm.
office building downsized their
Yeah.
trash, and they eliminated their blue entirely, at least the last time I looked. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's still not there.
and so those people, I imagine, are contributing to our bins. So is there any, I guess you can't force him to offer recycling? I don't know, it's a commercial facility.
No, they should have recycling, and I'm just wondering, so what
Your-
happens
Your trash bin got delivered there like 2 weeks ago.
and then, so what has happened is that, Recology is doing a lot of the removing of bins, and although, you know, we're trying our best to communicate, there are some mistakes happening.
So you're just.
And there are some places where they remove the bin prematurely before we deliver the bin, so it sounds like that might be the case. But I'll look into that, I'll set a reminder for myself,
Because
and,
their
because they
trash-
definitely have a recycling there.
Yeah, their trash bin is always overflowing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every Saturday there's a truck that comes in,
Yeah,
fills it up and takes off. I watched the guy when
fills
I'm
up
in,
their bin.
yeah, when I'm in my garage.
Really?
Yeah, he brings two of your bins from his house and a bunch of
No way.
and a bunch of just
Yeah.
garbage.
Have you ever been out and confronted?
Yeah, I asked him once if he was, if he, you know, if this is his office building, he
And what do
said,
you think?
no. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, that's terrible. Well, I will look into, they have to have recycling legally, and, there is a recycling included, so there's no reason why they wouldn't have recycling. I'll make sure, but I'll check to see why they don't have a bin yet.
I just found out.
Yeah.
It was just stated that they don't want to pay for it, so that's why they don't have it anymore.
They do get a recycling cart included, at least one.
They used to have.
Yeah, they used to have a big bin, but they also were not using that. They were, I mean, it was a pretty large bin for a small office. I measured the fullness and I couldn't tell you what it was, but it was they were probably using a quarter of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But their trash is definitely too small for their needs.
Well, if they're allowing people to, if they're not locking it, yeah.
We need to encourage them to get locked.
Yeah, and we are encouraging most everybody to get a
So
lock,
we're
but.
gonna wind down here,
Yeah.
but wanted everybody to know that there is a extra cart for doing your internal recycling for your food waste. Yeah, compost, so you're welcome to grab one of those and then you have.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some zero waste guides here from Zero Waste Sonoma that have some information in them, and then if for some reason you wanted to place a sticker anywhere on a container inside, maybe you have roommates or kids or grandkids that come by, feel free to grab a sticker. And we are printing out multifamily guides. We haven't received a shipment yet, but I will deliver some and I'll let you know when. I'll maybe just leave them in the mailroom.
Yeah.
And those have a good breakdown of what goes where, a little picture, and then a little information on all the services we offer.
Any
You've
last
been
minute
so
questions?
helpful, I really
Oh, good.
appreciate it, I have all my questions in.
Good, thank you. I know it's a little confusing, but you know, as long as everybody just tries their best and does their part as much as they can, you know, it makes a difference.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you just repeat the names of the two websites?
Yeah, so Zero Waste Sonoma is the countywide waste management agency, so anything Sonoma County, anything hard to recycle, anything hazardous, they can direct you to where that material needs to go, including, like, if you search where batteries go, they'll tell you every place in Sebastopol. Napa Recycling is where all your recyclables that you put into your blue dumpster go, so that's the facility. So they are a great reference for what you can recycle here at home or in any business in Sebastopol city limits.
So is there a place, do you not take anything, like in the large things, you take mattresses, like somebody, you take mattresses,
Yeah.
couches, everything? Okay.
Yeah, so, we take just about anything unless it's hazardous or, there's some appliance, take most appliances, but if it has like Freon in it,
No, then you
yeah,
can't.
you can't take that. But electronics, TVs, furniture, dishwashers, bags of garbage.
No construction materials, right?
No construction, yeah, so it's for household waste, not for like construction projects, which we don't want people using it for that. Yeah.
I've noticed from time to time just random pieces of just wood are put
Yeah.
in. Where does that go?
So it depends, if it's pressure treated wood
It's
or
not.
treated at all,
Yeah.
then
not.
it's technically a
Hazardous
lot of,
waste.
a lot of wood, pressure,
Yes.
treated wood is hazardous, but if it's untreated, it can go in the organics.
Oh, so like for instance, there's like pieces of wood like this that are in the kiosk that are getting ready to be moved along, they can actually go in the
The
compost.
little plywood pieces, plywood's not, you can't put plywood. in
No,
the
most
compost.
plywood is pressure treated.
So those.
It's gotta go to the facility, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so
I
that's.
saw them in there, I saw them in there the last few days.
Yeah, I'm just getting ready to dump them, so maybe they're not for me.
Yeah.
They're just getting off there.
Right.
So.
Painted wood can go in the garbage, but there's a fine line with it. Is it painted pressure treated wood? If it's untreated painted wood, it can go in the garbage.
And what did you say about electronics? You do like keyboards, monitors, that's old stuff you just,
Yeah.
I mean, I take it to work because we have electronics recycling,
Oh,
but I
okay,
will
yeah.
always be there. Where would I put my
Yeah,
old
so you can
keyboards and
either
things?
wait till you do those 2 yearly community,
Okay, that's a special,
pickups, we can,
electronics are
we'll
still special.
collect, exactly. There's also a lot of other events, Zero Waste Sonoma would could tell you about local events where they collect e-waste. But they're here every few months, either doing a hazardous e-waste or mattress collection.
She wants to start the meeting.
Okay.
Well, what people who need them come up and
Oh,
get
the
them.
only people who need them are gonna take them.
Would anybody like it?
Anybody like one? Okay.
Thank you so much. This is really educational.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the visual of that everything gets baled.
Yeah.
I think people don't understand that, that's how the process works.
Yeah.
So that was good too.
I usually have like a slide that shows it, but I'm glad that just verbally that worked.
No, it does.
You can see where you go down the freeway too.
Yeah, exactly.
Do
Yeah.
you offer tours of the facility?
So we could do a tour, but if people would wanna travel to Annapolis,